All right, well, good morning, everyone. I think we all know why we're here. We've seen the stories throughout the entire state of Florida over the last couple of months. Pop-up sites in wealthy locations tied to DeSantis donors. First, we also saw it in Sarasota County, $125,000 campaign donation pop-up site. We also saw it in Charlotte County, $50,000 campaign contribution pop-up site. Now, we've learned 1,200 of the residents of the wealthy enclave in January got vaccines while so many of our seniors were struggling to get onto websites, to get in lines, to get onto the phones. First, there was an $85,000 campaign contributions from 17 of the donors inside of this enclave, followed by another $250,000 check from the former GOP governor from Illinois. Also, our governor, just as the vaccines were being rolled out, he had his best fundraising month since 2018, $2.7 million in February. This is not a coincidence. This is not an accident. As a former public defender and the head of the felony division, I saw thousands of cases, from attempted murders to drug dealers to white-collar crimes. I know fact patterns. I have seen up close and personal crime. I don't need a law degree from Harvard to know that when there is smoke, there is fire. The fact pattern is simply just too clear to avoid. Give campaign contribution big dollars, get special access to vaccines. Ahead of seniors, ahead of our teachers, ahead of our farm workers, and so many of our residents here in the state of Florida who are scared and who are wanting these vaccines. If this isn't public corruption, I don't know what is. I know that we will get to the bottom of this, so I am asking the FBI Public Corruption Unit to be investigating this. I was a public defender, but now I'm Florida's Commissioner of Agriculture and Consumer Services. And over 22 million people here in the state of Florida are consumers, and most of them can't wait to get these vaccines. As our consumer watchdog, we fight fraud. I will not stand by and let our vaccines being used as political gain and to go and to be auctioned to the highest bidders, while so many of our Floridians are suffering, like my grandmother, like my mother, like your parents and grandparents. All while 51% of the vaccines have been distributed to white parts of our population, and just 11% to Hispanic, and 5.8% to our Black communities. Someone has got to get to the bottom of this, and I just want to thank our journalists who helped create the stories and to get to this started, and the outstanding journalism that you all have done during this course of these vaccines. We won't stand for this. We must get to the bottom of this. The people of our state are expecting this. This is an international healthcare pandemic, and we are supposed to all be in this together. And so getting to the front of the line because you have access and you have the financial ability is just unacceptable, and I will not stand for it. So I will now take your questions.
Can you demonstrate a tit for tat in this case? Because again, the governor says that this was done by a hospital, not by his administration. So where's the tit for tat there?
Well, first of all, governor has to finally take responsibility for something. He continuously has placed blame on others throughout this entire pandemic. Hospitals and prisons and people who can't apply and do the unemployment applications correctly. You know, as a statewide elected official, it is my job to oversee 19 divisions. And they go off of my leadership, and I have to be responsible for them. The governor needs to start taking responsibility for things that are happening. If we had a plan in place from day one, this would not be happening. And if it is a hospital who's doing this, we still have to have a paper trail. How did it get to the hospitals? Who made this specific request? And so that's why we're asking for the investigation, because there's a lot of unanswered questions and a huge amount of paper trail that we need to be uncovering.
Do you think that the legislature should investigate on their own, and do you think they would?
You know, certainly I would hope that there is a sense of duty, public service, that our legislators should step up and see that this is a continued pattern. But that's why I've gone to the federal government. This is federal dollars, federal resources, and it is being used for political and personal gain, which is why we've called for the FBI for investigation.
You are being accused of also using this for political purposes, though.
That I'm being accused of?
Yeah, that, bringing this up, you are considering a run for governor. You are looking for any ammunition that you might have against the governor.
Let me tell you, my number one priority has always been the citizens of our state. And the fact that this type of corruption is occurring in our state, where millions upon millions of Floridians that I hear from every single day who are still not able to get these vaccines, our frontline workers, our teachers, our farm workers. And so if this is something that has to be a priority for everybody. I just have an opportunity to be an elected official and taking this very seriously. And this is the type of corruption that I have vowed from day one at being a commissioner to fight against. Mike?
Information have you given the FBI and asked them, what did we actually ask them to do?
Well, we're certainly working with the FBI, and so we will get back to you on kind of the formality of what we're doing. But it's communication, and we can't disclose a lot of the communication with the FBI.
Commissioner, I wanted to ask you, the governor, when he was criticized for doing the Lakewood Ranches pop-up clinics that were chosen by a developer, he said, what harm is there? Everybody needs to get vaccinated. What harm is there in a wealthy community getting access to vaccines?
A tremendous amount of harm. You have the rest of the population who doesn't have equal access to the vaccines, people who are been waiting on lines and phones for hours upon hours. I mean, I have seen people who show me their cell phones that they've called 822 times unable to get access to these vaccines. And the fact that these life-altering, health-preventing, vaccines that are a public good, there should be equal opportunity and equal access, and we have seen that has not happened since day one of the rollout of the vaccines.
Is it not just part of the political process, though, Commissioner, to steer money to certain groups, interest groups, and certain individuals? And does this comport with that practice? I mean, we've seen it for decades where, you might be taking campaign contributions, but by virtue of your public office, you're also steering certain projects and money in certain directions.
Yeah, I think that's a problem. I think that's a fundamental problem, that if you're seeing that because you have money and you have wealth, that you have an unfair opportunity to influence contracts, to influence where vaccines are going to. And so this is, again, a showing of corruption that it happens. This is just the most blatant example of the vaccines, but this, of course, has been happening in our state for decades. And this is the most blatant, and this is the one that has the most impact on people's lives and their health and wellness.
Commissioner, to be clear, prior to this press conference, have you reached out to law enforcement in any capacity?
Well, of course, you saw that we have sent letters up to, the Congressional Oversight Committee, and until this came out yesterday, we had not been in contact with law enforcement until this all came out.
Do you have any evidence of quid pro quo? I mean, couldn't this just be thankful people making a big donation because they're so thankful they got a vaccine?
Again, when a coincidence happens over and over and over again, which is what we have seen here, I mean, even starting back with the Publix donation of the campaign contribution, now Publix originally being the only vendor distributing it. The fact is that it's just time and time again, this isn't just one example, that there has been now a pattern of these examples that have been occurring since these vaccines started to roll out.
Do you have any specific suggestions as to any kind of oversight on hospitals and any other outlets that are distributing vaccines to make sure that there is equity?
That's part of the problem, that there is no oversight. There has been no plan. We would not be here having this conversation today if the governor had actually put together a plan of how these were getting distributed.
But Commissioner, what is your plan?
Well, the plan originally, when I had first asked for the National Guard to be brought into this, we should have had a plan in place to make sure that there was equal distribution of the vaccines. We know that when the Publixes came online, that there are tremendous amounts of communities here in our state that don't have drivable access to a close Publix. And so making sure that there is an equal distribution of the vaccines, making sure that you are taking care of both parts of our state. We've got rural communities, we've got urban communities, we've got a lot of communities that are disproportionately represented up here in Tallahassee. So we really needed a plan to make sure that they were equally distributed and not change the plan. That's part of the problem, the confusion. First it was hospitals, then it was local departments of health, then it was Publixes, now it's Walgreens and CVS. The people of our state have been so confused from day one on this pandemic. The governor never had a plan of how to deal with this pandemic, continued to change orders around, confusing people, changing his mind, changing his decision, which has only elevated the confusion that has been going on with the pandemic and the rollout of these vaccines.
What specifically, what kinds of oversight are you calling for on hospitals and these other sites?
They should be held accountable to who are these vaccines going to, and are you following the protocols of whether it was the CDC or the governor's office, making sure these protocols are happening. We also saw the stories of how many people out of our state were flying in, that because they had wealthy opportunities with private planes, were coming here to the state of Florida. And finally, the governor understood the PR nightmare he had on that issue and said it was only for Florida residents. But again, if we had a plan that was brought together with experts, laid out, that people understood, okay, the next round is going to this group of people. Every other state, who the next round of the vaccines are going to. Here, everything has been kept secret. Everything has been non-transparent from day one of COVID, and it's continuing now during this vaccine. And we've got to hold him accountable and make sure that everybody in our state has an equal opportunity to get this vaccine. And quite frankly, this is why people are angry at politics, because of this kinds of corruption. People don't want to see this. They know that there's corruption that happens, and unfortunately they're seeing it in black and white in newsprints all across the state today.
Last question.
Can I ask an ag-related question? And if that's the last question, there's a right to farm bill moving through the legislature very quickly. A high priority for agriculture. Is your office, are you supporting or opposing?
We're monitoring it right now, and so working with to make sure that it is in the right posture, but we're monitoring it and haven't gotten engaged on the bill.
The environmentalists, it's a top priority of agriculture, and the environmentalists say it's being done to protect sugar burning, which your office allows. Can you respond to that?
I haven't spoken to the environmentalists, so I don't know what their specific issues are, but we can get back to it. But this is we want to stay on topic on this, and we can certainly talk to you offline about those issues.
Okay, thanks everyone.
All right, thank you.
You can't run away from this. That's a good thing.
I can't run away.
Just to be clear, you have a meeting with the FBI?
We are having it.